Hello, everyone. I have a new microphone. Finally, I am very excited. I have not had an official, honest to goodness microphone up until this point. I know my audio has been horrible. Hopefully, this takes care of some of it. Um, I really, really hope this does. But we are going to be starting chapter 2 of Preventive Medicine. And right away, I want to apologize. Up until this point, I've been calling it Preventative Medicine instead of Preventive Medicine. I went and I was double checking my spelling on everything because I have a tendency to double check everything, I guess. And I realized that there are two different spellings of the. I guess it's two different words, but really they mean the same thing. It's just a variation of the spelling and the pronunciation of the words. So, up until this point, preventative medicine is actually preventive medicine. I'll try to pronounce it correctly in the future. Sorry, guys. But this chapter number 2, is very exciting, and I've been looking forward to doing this one. This is the reason I didn't do chapter 2 last week. I couldn't talk, and it was a really fun chapter, and I was like, I can't waste a chapter. This is this good. This is too much fun. This is where he starts going through women's sexual development, starting at the beginning and presumably going all the way through to the end. I've read ahead a little bit, but not all the way to the end. I'm trying to save some of the fun for later. He starts off with what he calls the formative years, which are largely dominated by the party years, which everybody kind of has heard of the party years. In this chapter, we will be discussing the party years. He also talks about the teen years and the break years. Very briefly on the teen years, he's not going into it too much in detail. And then the break years, which is kind of a PSA for men. I never went through a break years kind of phase in my life, and so I have no personal experience with it, but I've heard enough stories about it that it's like, okay, this is a good PSA for people. So there's some good information here, just good information to live by. But there was a part of me, being a girl and reading this that, how girls get really excited about like horoscopes when they read them. They're like, oh my God, it's a Sagittarius. It's so me. I'm sitting here reading this. It's like, oh my God, it's so me. Even when it really wasn't. There are a lot of patterns in here that I haven't followed at all. But I've seen so many women around me following them. So I believe in the patterns he's describing. Like, there's no point at which I'm looking at this going, oh, that never happens. It's like, oh no, that totally happens. That's really what women are like. So it's been fun. While I'm fully prepared for the same outcries of overgeneralizing and the not all women are like that, NAWALT rationales that the infamous SMV graph inspired, understand this. Before any woman or feminine aligned man comes up with those predictable objections, this is an outline. Variables like culture, ethnicity, moralism, socioeconomic status, and outlying circumstances are all factors to consider when evaluating the motivations and behaviors of any woman. So there you go, guys. Like, even he's saying it. Like, I'm so happy he put this in here because he said things like this, and one of the things I I didn't actually know he had a I didn't know he had a YouTube channel until he messaged me on YouTube when I was reviewing his first book. Up until that point, I didn't know he had a YouTube channel, so I started watching his YouTube channel just to kind of get a feel for, how he talks about women, how he talks about some of these ideas. And I made that NAWALT AWALT video a little while ago talking about how the NAWALT argument is basically your idea doesn't count because there are exceptions to the rule, as opposed to accepting the fact that the exception usually proves the rule. He's saying it too. There are going to be exceptions to the rule. Not all women are like that. However, these are patterns that people generally fall into. And knowing the pattern is good because frequently, 9 times out of 10, you will find women at these stages of life following these patterns. Instead of hoping that whichever woman you're talking to is going to be the exception to the rule, it's better to know the patterns and understand the patterns and have a better kind of guess or clue as to what her motivations might be with certain behaviors. Also, I honestly think that women who fall outside of those patterns, they tend to be somewhat distinctive because I fall outside the patterns and I know there are several ways in which I'm a little bit distinctive. There are things about me that would indicate to people who know me that I don't fit the pattern very well. And so, like, when I was dating my husband, it was like the first thing I told him was that I was a stripper. It was like, just so there's no confusion, now you know I'm a stripper. Um, he ended up dating me anyway because he got to know me, and it very quickly became apparent that I was not your standard, ordinary, um, you know, coke addicted, needs attention, daddy didn't love me kind of stripper. That wasn't me. And he got to know me on an individual basis, and I kind of stood out, and I think that's one of the reasons he married me. Um, I wasn't your standard kind of woman. But, you know, I think I think it's important to realize that even the guy who wrote these rules down, they're not set in stone. There will be examples of women who don't fit these rules. So a lot of the really doomsday kind of black pill guys, calm down. Not all women are like that. And at the same time, I really like this chapter because the patterns that he's laying out, that's what women are like. Like most women, 99 point something women. Um, that's what we're like. And he puts it all down very clearly. And so it's been an interesting read because it might not always help me to understand myself, but it certainly helps me to understand my peers. The teen phase. During a girl's formative years, her foremost attraction is for the hot guy with a good body, the correct eye color, facial symmetry, and the right haircut. Yeah, like that sounds about right. I okay, this is one of those things I fall out of the pattern very quickly. When I was a teenager, I was looking for a person that I could have intellectually stimulating conversations with, and hopefully a person of the opposite sex. I would have taken someone of the same sex. Um, in fact, there was a person of the same sex that was very intellectually stimulating, and I was quite fond of her, but it's another story for another time. I was interested in a guy who was attractive physically, but also mentally stimulating because I needed that. I saw too many guys, and some of them were good looking, and some of them were really not. Because, I mean, when you're a teenager, no one looks that good as a teenager. I didn't look that good as a teenager. I understand that, your sexual market value is kind of zooming upwards when you're a girl. But, I mean, you also have to deal with bad hair days and pimples. So it's not perfect. Um, I met guys who were good looking and attractive looking and stupid. And I mean, everyone's done when they're a teenager, so that's not a knock against them. But I wanted more. Like from the very beginning, I wanted more. I wanted someone that I could really connect with. And maybe you can blame my dad for this because my dad was very intellectual. He was very bookish, and we would sit down and we would have these long conversations with him as kids about you know philosophy. My dad was like teaching us a philosophical concepts while we were kids. He taught us, Roman and Greek mythology. We would sit around, we would just talk about ideas. And so that was what I grew up with. That was the way people in my family interacted with each other. My mom with my dad, my mom with my brother and I. Not so much. She was still a mom, so she was still on mom duty a lot of the time. And that wasn't necessarily the most intellectual. It was more like clean your room right now because I said so. I know because now I'm there in that same position. But I remember my dad, like with my brother and I, we were always having these very, just kind of abstract, thought oriented kinds of conversations. And so I wanted that kind of connection with somebody because that's just how I am with people sometimes. And you don't find that when you're a teenager. Like you don't, like, at all. So yeah, there were a lot of guys who were okay looking, but we were all teenagers, so that meant we all had like a lot of growing up to do, and there was a lack of maturity there that just turned me off. And then there was the lack of intellectual anything going on that just kind of also turned me off. So I understand what he's saying. I mean, I was after a hot guy too, spelled Hawt. I was after that too. I wanted that too. But could I find it? I found one guy in my hometown, one, who was intelligent and introspective and very attractive as well. And I remember all the girls in my church working very, very hard to keep me away from him because he seemed somewhat similarly interested in me, which didn't sit well with the other girls in my church at all. In other words, a teenage girl simply doesn't have the life experience or a sense of provisioning necessity for much else to be an attraction consideration for her. Her mate prioritization cues on visceral arousal. Thus, this physical interest from adolescence through young adulthood is the top priority for both short-term arousal and, perceptually, long-term attraction. Is he good looking? Is he attractive? Is he hot? No? Okay, well, I'm not interested. Um, the trend that Tomassi notes as he's going through the party years and toward the end of the party years and into the epiphany phase is that as women get older, they go from purely physical, visceral attraction to, okay, is he, does he have a personality? Does he have a good job? Does he have money? It starts trending toward other things, but there's that initial visceral want. In the height of the party years, 23, when they're at the peak of their sexual market value, they want it all. Like, in primarily, again, attraction, physical, visceral attraction. I met my husband at the age of 23 at the height of my party years. Physical, visceral attraction was definitely one of the main things I was looking for. And it was definitely there. So I feel very lucky in that sense because things get more complicated the further on you go in this book for women and their relationships, and the glue that holds their relationships together gets a little more complicated. And I'm really happy that I cut off early. I'll add the caveat here that a woman's prioritization of the physical is inversely proportional to the degree to which her provisioning needs are being met beyond seeking a mate or mating opportunities. In other words, if things aren't secure at home, daddy issues, an adolescent girl physically and mentally prepares herself for a long-term mate earlier than when a solid, positive masculine father is present in her life and in the home. I thought this part was really interesting for a lot of different reasons. I remember when I was young and I was frustrated in my inability to find an attractive partner, women that I knew that I worked with as dancers, like women who actually liked me and actually weren't trying to screw me over or stab me in the back. They were constantly saying, look, just find a nice military guy. There's a base not that far from here. Pick out a nice military guy, marry him, and you'll have life insurance for the rest of your life. You'll be all set. Money won't be a problem for you. And it was like, I didn't want any of the military guys because when I met them, a lot of them just wanted to get drunk and have sex, and that was all they were really interested in. I'm not saying all military guys are like that. I just think that our base was one of those rural places that the military likes to send guys who aren't really good for anything else to. It wasn't exactly where you send your top-notch dudes. It was where you send the guys who maybe pissed off the wrong, higher up, superior, whatever. Send them to the ass end of nowhere, and they can't cause any trouble there, which sometimes they do, because I remember the military base, it wasn't a good military base. The military guys there generally, I met some good ones, but as a general rule, not so great. But yeah, everybody was always telling me that I should just find some guy to take care of me, and I really didn't like that. I didn't want to have to do that ever. And luckily, I got a job as a dancer, and that paid for pretty much everything, so my provisioning needs were met. My childhood was really messed up, but my father was present, and he was definitely masculine positive, so I don't know how that all fits out. This was an interesting paragraph for me, because it's where do I fall in all this? Because I'm going to be doing a video in the very near future about how my messed up childhood was messed up, just to kind of give you guys an idea, because it wasn't, I didn't even do the messed up childhood in the normal way. It was complicated. The short version for teenage game when you're in high school is that looks, physique, and physical prowess are a girl's attraction priority. This priority will build a foundation for her attraction cues later as she matures, but the primary importance during this phase is looks and performance. Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. I had so many friends who would just go, they would go nuts over guys, and I didn't understand. And I was told that, I didn't need to go on a date or worry about dating until I turned 18. So I really just put it on the back burner. I had no interest. I had other things going on. I wasn't interested. Everybody else was going nuts over guys. They were like getting all fluttery over guys. I didn't understand it at all. Like, I remember we were like 13 and this girl was like swooning over this boy, and I was like, he's mildly prepubescent. I don't get it. I don't get it. And that really just didn't improve throughout the majority of high school. There were a few moments where it was like, okay, I kind of get it. Like, I'd find people that I was attracted to, and then life would kind of just go back to normal, and it was like, I don't get it. You guys are crazy. Like, I'd see girls fighting over a boy and be like, you are insane. And yeah, that's just kind of where I stood on it. The break phase. Generally, the break phase comes at or about the time of a young woman's senior year or shortly thereafter of high school, when she's forced into a conflict between continuing a monogamous relationship she began in her teenage years and severing it as college or a simple want for sexual independence looms closer as she approaches young adulthood, graduation, and possibly moving away from her home for an indefinite period of time. I'm glad he mentioned this, and he kind of did mention this as a warning to men. Um, yeah, don't expect women to stay loyal to you at the end of high school or whenever that break phase comes where she's like, "You'll wait for me, right?" No, don't wait for her. Do not wait for her. If you're not of enough of a priority for her to stick around, you're not her priority. And that sounds really horrible, but at the same time I looked and it's like, well, men would do the same thing. So if, say, there was a guy who grew up in a small restricted town and he was dating the prettiest girl in town, but she was kind of fat and she was not that pretty, and for some reason or another he got a role starring in some Hollywood film, and off he went to go pursue his dreams. um, he might say, "Yeah, I'll stick around for you," but once he gets into this new environment, Hollywood, where he's surrounded by the kind of women that he can only dream about when he was in his small town, his perspective is going to change. It's not like it's just a short visit to this new environment. This becomes his new world. He is surrounded by incredibly attractive women. Going back to that small dating pool in that small town and picking up again where he left off with that not that pretty girl, it would be doing himself a disservice. In the sexual marketplace, it would not be a smart move for him, and I think any guy looking at him would be like, "Dude, are you sure she's that special?" And sometimes she is, but the majority of the time she's really not. It was a budding romance at the very beginning of your growth in adulthood, at the very verges of genuine adulthood. And so I don't think anyone blames the guy who tells the girl, "Okay, I went off to Hollywood and suddenly I'm surrounded by, A-list actresses. I just don't really think I'm that into you anymore." So I don't think it's really reasonable to blame the girl when she goes off to college and suddenly realizes that she's in a much bigger dating pool surrounded by many, many more men who are much more compatible with her than her high school sweetheart ever was. The problem with girls is they're very emotional, and so they look at it and they're like, "Well, don't leave yet. I have all these fond memories with you, so stick around with me." And no, no, just tell her it's been fun. That's it. We're done. It's been sweet. It's been fun. We both had a great time. We have a lot of fond memories. Let's go our separate ways and pursue our destinies, and that's it. Do not hang around waiting on this girl. She's going to realize that she has better opportunities, and she is going to forget you rapidly in most cases. And I have known women who have done this to guys, and it was never a good thing for the guy she did it to, and it was a good thing for the guy she ended up with because she did that. And so, you know you got to be realistic about these things. Like, you cannot maintain these break phase kinds of relationships. If she wants to take a break but she still loves you, and you'll wait for her, right? No, just no. It's almost 99.999% of the time it is not a good idea to wait for that girl. The party years. It's during the party years that women begin to prefer dating men older than themselves. At this phase, this is generally between a 4 to 6 year difference. However, Roise postulated that even more mature men still have potential depending on their own sexual market value. This is very true. This is actually very true. Um, I was looking for a guy approximately 5-ish years older than I was, just slightly older. I found a man who was, I believe, 3 years older than I was. And that worked out really well for me. But when I was in my hometown and the dating pool was extremely, extremely limited. And when I say extremely, I want you to think like there was a point where I only knew 10 men, and several of them were married, so it was extremely limited. Um, if the attractive man in town, like the only attractive man that you can find in town, is twice your age, but he's more attractive than the other 6 guys that you know, yeah, I went on dates with guys who were older, and I know that sounds like daddy issues, but it was like, it's that one or that ugly one over there, and he is really a hard no for me. So it's this guy or single. And I ended up dating older guys because there just weren't that many people in town. Everybody my age, if they had any ability to whatsoever, left my hometown. So if they could get into the military, they got into the military, they got out. If they could get into college, they get into a college, they get a scholarship, they get the hell out of town. So we graduated, and anybody who was even remotely promising or attractive or valuable in any way, they were gone. And so the pickings got really slim really quickly. Later in the party years, a woman's hypergamy leads her to look for the alpha bad boy who might also be molded, tamed into her long term ideal. This is the Tarzan effect, the want for an idealized, optimal balance of hypergamic interests in the same alpha male. The idea is one that an alpha man might be tamed, in some cases coerced via pregnancy, into assuming the providership role, beta bucks, the other half of her sexual strategy demands. This is the everything man. This is the I want it all. Um, I got it all. I am very, very lucky, and I am very, very spoiled, and I realize this. I got to have it all. I wasn't trying to mold or tame the everything man. I wanted to find him pre-molded and pre-tamed because I'd already ended up in relationships with bad boys, but I wasn't like looking for bad boys. Like, it was literally, again, small town. It's like I can have this jackass over here or I can have that alcoholic over there. I think I'll go with the alcoholic because he's a good cuddler and he's really attractive physically, but either one, I can't stay in this relationship forever. Um, I dealt with the bad boys like a lot, and I just wasn't really that into the bad boy thing. I knew a lot of girls, like I danced with a lot of girls who were super into the bad boy thing, and I just really, really wasn't. I wanted the full enchilada. I didn't want the bad boy who had to be molded or tamed. I wanted it all right there, served up, perfect as it was, no need to change anything. This is it, done. He's got the alpha attraction and the alpha hotness and the alpha tingles, but he's also got, he's got his head screwed on straight. I don't need money, I just need a guy with his head screwed on direct, correctly. um I found those elements in one individual, and I managed to marry him. I managed to convince him to marry me, which is miraculous. Back when I was 23 and I was noticeably younger and hotter. But I've seen girls try to tame the alpha bad boy. I've seen girls, like, two of the men that I've dated, and there weren't that many men I dated. So when I say two of the men that I dated, that's kind of a large percentage of the men I dated, were trapped via pregnancy. One of them, it was a guy that I started dating after he broke up with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend came back and told him that, he owed her because she was pregnant with his kid. She got pregnant with his kid on purpose, so he broke up with her because screw that. But he was already pretty well trapped. And our relationship, over the next 9 months kind of became increasingly disastrous because he belonged to somebody else, and he didn't tell me for like the first month that we were dating, which was kind of an asshole move on his part, but bad boy, what can you say? He was an asshole to begin with. The other one was the I Need My Freedom guy that I was kind of pursuing until I met my husband and forgot all about the I Need My Freedom guy. I Need My Freedom guy got really upset when I suddenly lost interest in him, even though I had warned him. I did warn him. He had warning. I did not just suddenly monkey branch away from him with no warning. He had plenty of warning. But yeah, he got really upset when I monkey branched off and completely forgot about him because I guess he was fonder of me than he liked to let on. Like he was doing that whole, oh, I like to spin plates and I like my freedom and blah, blah, blah. Well, suddenly I was gone and then he was upset. I did not intend for this to happen. I am very sorry. I didn't want to hurt him, but there was no way in hell I was going to pass up a guy like my husband for him. Like, I was definitely monkey branching way up the ladder. I was getting everything I wanted. And again, he had warning. He was not, taken out of the blue by this. Well, he was. It totally took him out of the blue, but it's not like I didn't say to him point blank that this was going to happen eventually. He ended up dating this girl who miraculously got pregnant like about 3 or 4 months later. And then he was trapped, and that was the end of it. Which is unfortunate, but I'm telling you guys these stories because I want you to know condoms are a wonderful thing. Condoms are your friend. Bring your own condoms. Do not trust her to provide you with good, reliable condoms. Um, Take your condoms home with you. Don't leave them at her place or flush them down the toilet, which is probably not good for the plumbing, so take them home with you. Um, do not trust women because it only takes one crazy bitch to really wreck your life up, and I have seen it happen twice. Social conventions. Little girls fight in an entirely different realm than do boys. Where boys fight in the physical realm, girls fight in the psychological. This social collective progressively becomes a rewarding and reinforcing social unit, locking out those not included and nurturing those who are included. I have both of those quotes together because I was one of the girls who got locked out of the social unit pretty early on, like really early elementary school, and I just stayed locked out. I had friends who were basically girls, I think, of a lower social status, you might say. Not all of them. I mean, some of them were pretty decently friendly, but they weren't that close. The ones who were close, the one in particular who was close, was basically using me as a stepping stone to elevate her own social status because I was prettier, and so she was not as pretty, but she was not. She wasn't bad looking. She just wasn't quite as pretty, and so she would try to keep me around and make me look like an idiot to kind of fluff herself up and make herself look better. And that was most of the social interaction that I had when I was in elementary school. I started self isolating very early on. I had a lot of problems. I had a messed up childhood. We'll make another video about that later. But pretty much the only social interaction I got on a regular basis was with this girl and then later some of her friends who were equally messed up. And they were just kind of putting me down to make their own egos a little bit loftier. Um, it's all about attention. And I don't know that game as well as I should because I didn't play that game growing up. I I kind of just cut myself off from the world and hid away from the world and hid away from people and try to keep everybody at arm's length when I was really little, and it just kept going as I got older. Um, I ended up with horribly stunted social skills by the time I graduated high school that I needed to then supplement with like later learning, which is really awkward when you don't know how to be like socially, fluent with other people and you're an adult and you should know better. I still fuck up a lot with that. I'm still not good at it. But this is how women play. This is how girls play, and they just grow up playing this game and they continue playing this game. Like, and I don't fit in with women socially in part because of this. I've gotten a lot better of it with it, like as I become a mom and I'm interacting with other moms, and at this point we're not playing the same kind of game. We're socializing in order to provide our kids with a safe environment for them to socialize. And so it's a completely different game. We're all playing very, very nice because we want our kids to be, in the best possible environment. And so we're all working as a team in our own way to create a good environment for all of our offspring. It's a very different game. When you're young, when you're single, even when you're a little girl, like all that time period, women are ruthless and vicious, and they are constantly fighting. They're constantly one-upping. They're constantly playing mind games. They're constantly undermining one another. This has been my experience of women, and I understand that they're not all girls are like that. I knew some girls who were genuinely very nice, but they had to deal with the girls who were bitchy, who were undermining them, who were playing mind games, who were being real assholes. That's why Mean Girls became a movie. I never even watched Mean Girls, but I get what it was about just from the title. Like, we all know what that's about. That's what girls are like. However, when ostracized from the collective, this capacity for consistently attracting attention in a high degree makes her despised. The attention can still be beneficial for affirmation, i.e., realized jealousy. It's just the intent that has changed. Been there, done that. Throughout high school, like I got prettier as I got older. Like, and then I became a stripper. And then I had to deal with a lot of other strippers who were not as pretty as I was because they were older strippers and their pretty days were past them, and they had gotten fat and they had gotten wrinkly and their hair was turning gray and they were dyeing their hair to hide the gray hairs, and they had all sorts of issues related to age. And then I came in and I was just kind of new, and I had my own problems that I was interested in, so I wasn't paying attention to the social game that women play. And oh my god, they were so mean to me. They were those kinds of women. Like, they were like awful. This is the way that women are. And I remember at several points being like, if I didn't know any better, I'd think these bitches were jealous of me. No, that can't be right because I'm so fucked up. There's no way anyone would be jealous of me. No, they were jealous of me, and now that I'm older, I realize it. Women are acculturated in a social order that reinforces women's aspirations and empowerment and encourages her to postpone intimate and family relations until she attains some nebulous goal state. At that time, she will always be able to find another man, or so she's told. Yeah, that's it. That's what it's about. There are so many women. Like, I remember when I was reading up on abortion, because I started this channel about abortion because I had an abortion. So many women. I would read like personal testimonials from women. So many women. I want to have kids someday, but I'm just not ready yet. I'm 26. Dude, what the hell? Like, if you're 26 and you're not ready to have a kid yet, you really need to look at yourself and be like, okay, what else do I really need to do? Because 26 is good prime baby making years. Like, what have you been doing with yourself? Take some time, do a serious self evaluation, find somebody, settle down, start having kids. You do not want to be, oh, I'm finally ready to have kids. Wow, I just celebrated my 40th birthday, because some women do that too. Um, Women are told, work on your career, go to college, get that doctorate, honey. Go excel in STEM, and become the first female astronaut, and don't worry, you'll be able to find a man after you do all that. We are told this. I was told this. We're always told, postpone family, postpone marriage, don't settle down too soon, you're moving too fast. Just go work on you. And all that other stuff will come in its own time. It's bullshit. It's a lie. And women are fed this lie every single day. And they believe it because they're never told anything else. And it's bad for them. It is not good for women that they are told this. I I was incredibly lucky. I was incredibly blessed. I was able to find a wonderful, hypergamously ideal man, and I was able to marry him, settle down, and have kids with him while I was still in my 20s at that wonderful, like, peak prime baby making years. Yeah, I could do with a few more. I was really hoping to be done before the age of 35. Might not happen, but I have three, so it's not like I've been, twiddling my thumbs or something. Um, I got very lucky in that sense. So many women that I know have not been lucky like that. They they believe the lies. They believe what they're told. They're in their 30s and all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe I should settle down and have, get married and have kids. And it's a little too late for that. They're left scrambling around, digging through the leftover bargain bin, hoping that they'll find Mr. Right, and it's not it's not a good situation. It's because women are told, oh, just put it off for later. You have to discover yourself. You have to explore. You have to make mistakes and learn and grow. And I mean, yeah, you kind of do, but not to the degree that women are told they have to. It's not good. And it's bad for women. It's bad for men and it's bad for women. It's bad for everybody. It's not a good thing. If you're a young man reading this section, my best advice is to consider that the decisions and circumstances you're confronted with today will drastically change in less than a decade. Understand that making life changing emotional or idealistically motivated decisions now will affect the direction of your life. He's talking about men's raising sexual market value. And he's talking about how if you're a young man, if you're reading this book right here, and this is a good book to read if you're like 21. If you're 21, 23, even 25, and you're reading this book and you're thinking about making decisions that you kind of maybe know aren't good for you, but you're thinking about making them anyway, please consider the fact that as you age, your sexual market value will go shooting up when you are older. When you're, I think the magic number that he writes about is 35. I can go check that because he's got a neat little graph here. 38. For men, for men, peak sexual market value is 38, although it looks pretty darn high at about 35-ish. And I noticed that on here, does it look like it goes to about, no, it's the same level. 38, gentlemen. So please be aware that if you just wait a little while, don't try to propose to your high school sweetheart. I knew a girl in my high school who bullied her then boyfriend into proposing to her while they were still in high school. It was our senior year, and she was showing everybody the ring, and all my friends were like oohing and awing over it, and I looked at him and he looked absolutely miserable. And I was young and I was stupid, and I didn't just grab him by the arm and say, "Run for your life, that bitch is crazy." I should have done that. I didn't do that. I wasn't old enough. I wasn't experienced enough. I wasn't daring enough to do something like that. But that's what I should have done. And if I could go back and change it, I would. Honestly, I would grab him, shake him, and tell him, "You deserve better. You're a handsome young man. You've got a promising future. Ditch this crazy person and go find someone who actually deserves you." Of course, then everybody would think I was after him for me, and I wasn't any more attracted to him than any of the other guys in my high school. But he was still, I mean, he was a good looking guy, and he clearly deserved better than, she was crazy. Don't rush into decisions. Don't rush into marriage. I talked to a guy a while back who was like 22 or something, and he was like, "I'm done spinning plates. I think I know everything I need to know, and I'm ready to get married. I'm ready to settle down." And I was like, "Okay, like, I know some religious guys who get to that point and they are ready to settle down and they meet someone who's really good, and they do." And I went and I saw two people get married, and I think it was either the groom or the bride was too young to drink at their own wedding. And it was like, okay, you're really, really, really young. They were really, really, really conservative Catholic. They were both insisting on the virgins till marriage thing, so they were in a bit of a hurry. but they were both really level-headed individuals. Like, I'd put my money on them being okay. They both had their heads screwed on straight. They both knew what they wanted. They both had the same goals. They both seemed like very stable individuals. And so it's like, okay, sometimes that happens. After all, there's an exception to every rule. Generally speaking, if you're some 22-year-old guy, don't propose yet. Don't, just give it a little time. Just wait a little while. Really really kind of feel out the field. Like, you have time to grow. And that's one of the things that I think is really crazy, because women are given that advice when they're 22. Like, you have time to grow, sweetheart. Go out and explore and go on vacations at exotic beaches and have sex with, exotic men, just to have a fun party. And really, that's the advice we should be giving to men. Instead, we're giving it to women. And I don't know why. It's kind of a mystery to me, but it is very good advice. It bears repeating, so I just repeated it for you guys. That's actually the end of the chapter, which is sad because I could probably do another one. This has been fun. He goes on, like, in the next chapter, like, let's see, that's all the pink bookmarks that I have in here. I've got my chapters divided by color coding, so let's see. Chapter 3, the Epiphany phase. It's going to be so good. I can't wait. I'm going to try to do that next week. Instead of taking a break week, because I had 2 break weeks, which is just too many break weeks in a row, I'm going to try to do the Epiphany phase next week. And then I'm probably going to have some other videos sandwiched in between this Thursday and next Thursday, because I've got just kind of a lot going on. So don't be surprised if some other videos kind of make their way out. I kind of don't want to do that, because I notice that videos don't seem to do as well when I kind of squeeze them in between Thursdays. But I just have a backlog kind of building up. There might be another interview video coming out. I wanted to do one about my childhood, because I think it's something that I should mention. Like, I realize more and more that I have these anecdotes where it's like, oh, well, of course I was an exception to the rule because my life was weird. I should probably just elaborate on that a little bit, because there are too many times that I say that I was an exception to the rule and I don't elaborate on that. I want to do, somebody sent me a link to the 16 Commandments of Poon, from Chateau Artiste, and that was really fun. I want to do a reaction video to that. That's probably going to be my next video, so that's probably going to come out sometime this week, but there's going to be like a big clump of videos coming out. I don't have the time or the energy to do that all the time, but right now there's just a lot going on. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and I hope you guys benefit from it by having lots of videos to watch. And I will talk to you guys later.